Howdy, how you doing? Welcome back to my mountain adventures. Today I thought we'd talk a little bit about the kinds of containers and the things that the mountain men use to carry their stuff around. As you see in the title, possibles, bags, haversacks, and knapsacks. Those are what we're going to be talking about. So let's get down to some basics down here. Before we get showing too much of the things, we need to talk about a little bit about some terminology. The word possibles bag is used a lot to describe what people thought the mountain men used to carry their stuff around. And you can see a couple references to possibles bags. Like in George Frederick Rexton's book, Life in the Far West, he says, "Where's the dollars that ought to be in my possibles?" What he's talking about is, in his possibles, he goes on later to describe that as a kind of a large wallet-like thing that he kept some deer hides in to make moccasins and some other supplies and things, some bars of lead and stuff. So we know from that description that he's talking about more than a shooting pouch. It wasn't until probably the 1960s, 1970s when this whole mountain man recreation hobby got started that people started associating the word possibles bag with what is actually a shooting bag or a shooting pouch. So it's important to know that a possibles bag is not your shooting bag or shooting pouch or shot pouch. That was a separate bag for that specific function, and we've talked about those in an earlier video. So now we're going to talk about the kinds of bags that the Mountaineers carried a lot of their other things in, their daily cooking utensils, other food items, those sort of things. And the terminology we need to use, besides possibles bag, probably the earliest description of this is a knapsack or snapsack. And these all go back to Germany, Holland, the Scandinavian countries, and where those words originated. The word rucksack actually wasn't used popularly until the 1890s. So rucksack is not something we can use accurately or appropriately in our time period. But knapsack is, snapsack is, and haversack. Now a haversack is actually, or originally, a haversack was something you carried your food in, and haver in France meant an oat sack. And it was probably originally, the oat sack was the feed bag that they tied on a horse's nose, that they put the oats in. And later that was used to carry a man's food items in. And then it became attached to the military. And the military would often issue to their soldiers in England and France a haversack. And that was specifically for them to carry their issued rations in, not other items. Okay, so a haversack is, the terminology for that goes back to the 1600s also. So it's okay to use the term haversack. That'd be something. Okay, so here's an example of a nice homey looking haversack, about that size. Made out of a good heavy, probably a hemp canvas there. It looks like they've beeswaxed this a little bit. And that's the size for, you could carry daily rations in. Probably not something you're going to be able to go on an extended trek with, but you can carry quite a bit of food, rations in there, your fire kit, those sort of things. Okay, so that's a nice example of a haversack there. Earlier, however, than a haversack, before they started making these, they used something called a snapsack, which is nothing more than basically a tube of fabric. I've got a very small example here of like a snapsack. It's a tube, and they tied it off at both ends and wore it diagonally across their back. And you can see in a lot of old European paintings and things that people wearing these across their back as a snapsack. So you can make that, of course, make it a lot larger and carry your gear around in it. Okay, so if you used a piece this big, you can see that you can carry a lot of stuff in a bag like this. If it was either a bag or open it at both ends, and all you simply have to do is tie off both ends with a leather strap and carry that around your back. Okay. Now the evolution from a snapsack to a haversack is eventually what they did was they would put a couple of either rifle balls or musket balls down here in the bottom and tie straps around it, and then tie those up to the top here and wear that upright instead of diagonally across their back. Wear that upright, and that became the origin of a knapsack. Okay. And then moving on from a knapsack, then they started reinforcing with more heavy straps and made what we nowadays call a backpack. Now, I didn't mention earlier that the word backpack wasn't used until the 1910s, and it's an American origin, the word backpack. So you don't see that commonly in literature until the early 1900s. So what you have now is a knapsack made from a bag, and then they've reinforced it with some straps, like you say, and some reinforcement up here and on the bottom, put some straps on it and carried around like what we'd call a backpack, but back then still called a knapsack. Okay, so there's a couple of examples. Again, this is, now you see this, the size of this one's getting a little bit bigger, so now you can carry a little bit more equipment in here and go out on an extended multiple day trip using that as, you know, everything you need in there. That's what the mountaineer might have called his possibles bag right there. Again, not a shooting pouch. Okay, the one I use, well, here's another example. Another example of a bag is called a market wallet, or a slit pouch. And you can see these in the paintings, the European paintings, very commonly. The lady would sometimes use this. All it is a long, elongated bag with a slit here in the middle for putting stuff in. Okay, and then they'd load that up like it is and just throw it over their shoulder and do their shopping. And this is a very viable, good way to take your equipment as a mountaineer, maybe a predecessor to the saddlebags. You could easily use that as a saddlebag. It's long enough to throw across the back of your saddle, tie it on behind the saddle like that, carry a lot of stuff in there. It's made out of a good, heavy hemp or linen canvas, reinforced, and a really good bag. And I see these in a lot of different sizes. This one's large enough to take, again, on a multiple day trip, carrying your food and all your extra gear in there, your cooking equipment, that sort of thing. So this is a good option for you if you're starting out. You don't have to invest a lot of money, just get yourself some good canvas like that, sew it up, probably about 36, 40 inches long, 18 or 20 inches wide. Makes a good bag. We talked about the knapsack. This is the haversack, or excuse me, the knapsack that I use. Again, made out of heavy hemp canvas. I personalized it with certain things on there. I finished the raw edge there with a piece of hemp webbing, and put, again, the same leather reinforcements on the back and on the inside of the pack to reinforce the strap ties to it. I added a handle there for convenience. So for the next few minutes, we're going to talk about some of the contents that I carry inside my pack. First thing I'll talk about is my cooking ware. This is a sheet steel frying pan. The trade ledgers talk about lots of sheet steel frying pans being available. Although cast iron had been developed and invented by that time, there's no record of cast iron frying pans being brought out to the mountains in the rendezvous period. Very few mentions of even a Dutch oven, and I don't think the term Dutch oven was even used then. It was cast iron kettles and things, but those are very rare. Now in some Miller paintings you will see like an occasional three-legged kettle hanging over a fire or something. That was probably cast iron. But in their frying pans, more than likely sheet steel. And you'll see this one's about the size for one guy, maybe two guys to cook out of this. If you was cooking for the whole camp, the whole trapping party, you probably have a bigger pan than this one. The other things I carry is a little tin plate and a tin bowl. Okay, and this tin bowl is just hammered out of an old pie plate. So you can find things like this, make your own. I had a good tinsmith friend of mine make this little plate. And it's handy to have several things like this, because when you're cooking, you sometimes need to store some of the cooked items off the fire while you're still using your frying pan. So those all nest together really well, and I carry those all inside the canvas bag to keep the other contents of my knapsack from getting filthy. Staying with the cookware, the next thing I carry is a little boiler. A little tin boiler. Again, a tinsmith friend of mine made this. And this is where I put all my soups, stews. If I'm making chocolate, boil some chocolate up, use that. So between the frying pan and this boiler, I can make most of my meals. Inside the boiler, I carry a handleless tin cup for my personal drinking. And inside there, I carry a little spice bottle and a salt horn. And again, when you store that inside your bag, inside your knapsack, you want to put that inside of a canvas bag like this to keep the contents from getting dirty again. Let's see what else I've got. Well, this is a little thing called a kitchen, a little personal kitchen, camp kitchen or something. A few bugs in there. This just carries some utensils. So it's just a simple piece of canvas, sew some pockets in it. I carry a few spoons, a couple knives and forks and things in there. Where, you know, and the reason I carry a couple extras so I can share with trail mates and stuff if they forgot them or you want to share something and their utensils aren't readily at hand. So the old-fashioned knives and forks, these three-pronged forks and these old knives are fairly common. You can find these on the internet quite commonly. You don't want to use modern utensils, obviously, and ruin your whole persona with something like that. Horn spoons are acceptable if you want to get a spoon made out of a horn. If you look around at some antique stores and stuff, sometimes you'll find these nice old silver spoons and things. And that might be a little uncommon for a trapper to have a silver spoon, so you might want to stick with the more common iron forks and knives and things. That pretty much completes the utensils. The majority of what else I have in the bag here are just a variety of food sacks made out of different materials. You can sit around. These are kind of fun to sew up when you have some spare time. And make sure you get, again, period correct materials. Hemp, linen, cotton's good. And inside the bag you carry, you know, a variety of things. This is, I think, this is a toiletry bag, so I carry some Castile soap in there. Nowadays it's important to use Castile soap because it's biodegradable and doesn't harm the environment. I also carry some food rations here. I can fill a little bag of tea in there. So I guess the soap must have got out of its original bag. What else I got in here? This is a fire pouch. It's got some extra tinder in it. Normally when we go out camping and stuff, you know, tinder is abundant fire starting materials. Sometimes you get out in some rainy weather or some snow and snowy environment, so you can't find good tinder at hand, and you know, if it's cold and it's an issue, then you want to have some tinder available. So I've got some inner cottonwood bark here, some cedar bark and stuff that I can, you know, that's safe, it's dry, that I can make a fire out of it in challenging conditions. Also, I carry a little bit of fat wood or grease wood in here. This is just wood that's impregnated with pitch, and if you get a little flint and steel fire going, you get it on here, it just burns like a little torch, and this helps spread your fire. It's sometimes quite necessary when you're out, like I say, under trying circumstances to make sure you've got fire. It could be life and death. I carry an extra can of char in here for flint and steel fire. This is another food bag. I think in here I've got some ship's bread or ship's biscuits, or sometimes called pilot bread. This is, eventually this became called hardtack in the Civil War period, but this is just flour and water. And the old sailing ships had these by the barrels, and these preserved really well. Although there are some recorded instances where they opened the barrel and the barrel was full of bugs that had eaten all their ship's bread. So these are a very convenient way to carry bread, but you can't eat these straight like this and break your teeth. So what you need to do with that is soak it overnight in water before you use it in the morning, and when it's soaked, it reconstitutes, it gets a little thicker, and then you can fry that, or you can bust it up and put it in a stew or something and use it that way. It's kind of, like I say, kind of hard to eat straight like that. And important to know that hardtack is not the correct, the period correct name for that. I carry in some wax paper. I carry some Mexican chocolate for making a nice hot beverage at night. This kind of chocolate is widely available at most Mexican markets and things. This is Ibarra brand, but there's other brands you can find. It's got kind of a cinnamon taste to it, very good for a nice hot beverage. Trying to see if there's anything else in here unique. And I have bags of flour, bags of cornmeal, a bag of split peas, Just those kind of rations. Bags of jerky. This is the bag that the Castile soap belonged in. And in here I've got a boar bristle bone toothbrush and a couple of horn combs for cleaning up, and also a sharpening stone to dress my knives up and keep them nice and sharp. Sometimes you can find a good stone, a serviceable stone like this out in the river somewhere you can use. File is handy to have for sharpening your knives and your axes and hatchets and things. Files, you know, some people question that, but you can find files on the trade list. So it's important to examine those trade lists that I talk about for items that you know aren't, you think weren't there, but you'll be surprised what you'll find. This is just a tin of shoe grease made out of, I think this one's made out of buffalo fat and a little bit of beeswax added in there. And I use this for greasing up my moccasins, other leather items occasionally. And I think the rest of it's pretty redundant, what I've got in the bag there. I got a bag full of a few emergency extra shooting balls. Normally I keep all my shooting balls in my shooting pouch, but it's not a bad idea to have some somewhere else in case you get separated from those items. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to talk about some of the options and alternatives for packing your gear, proper mountaineer style. Of course, these are made to carry on your back. If you're out, you have the luxury of having a pack horse with you, and panniers and stuff, you can pack more on there, carry more with you. But these are kind of man-portable items, way to carry your gear in the field. Been good seeing you again out here in the mountains. Hope to see you again real soon. Take care.
I'll just pick part of Crip Creek and not sing.